447-1777. Wellness Wednesday. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. Norm Shealy and Dr. Shealy-Sorin.
Good afternoon. Wow, it's great to be with you today to discuss one of our favorite subjects, hormones and holistic health.
Yeah, the combination is a wonderful one.
There are scores, really, of different things that could be called hormones, but there are four that are my favorites, and you can make them instead of taking them. That's the important thing. It can't harm you necessarily to take them, but it can't do half as much for you as if you are healthy enough to make your own optimal DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone. It is a natural hormone made in the adrenal glands and in men in the testes as well. Men are on a higher level by about 1/3 than women do. Now, interestingly, the average physician, I have to say, is perhaps about as ignorant as this as they are on most common sense things. They don't know that an optimal level of DHEA is in a man is not below 750, and in a woman not below 550, because the lab says the range is, like 180 to 1250 in a man and 130 to 980 in a woman. But in our clinic, we did a study. We've never seen a healthy person with a healthy level of DHEA, with an unhealthy person with an healthy level of DHEA. In other words, it's probably as good a monitor of anything that something isn't good in your body if your DHEA in a man is below 750 or below 550 in a woman.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a little bit about the labs and reference ranges. The fact that there's a normal, a standard normal, so to speak, between this or this, the low number and the high number, which is acceptable. Now, the interesting thing on that, and we'll talk about that in terms of other hormones as well, but everything is, it's not just an absolute number, and it's also ratios of things as well. And as well as the ratio of cortisol and DHEA. Now, let's talk about the origins of DHEA because people might not realize exactly what it is and what it does. DHEA is one of our favorite hormones because it's a precursor to all the other hormones, pretty much. And it not only is the DHEA is made, it's adrenal, it's on top of the kidney, right neck, alongside cortisol. When cortisol goes up, you got to have cortisol to deal with stress. If you burn out on cortisol, you're, tough luck. But if the cortisol is always high, DHEA wants to keep up so that it, maintains the homeostasis, parasympathetic relaxation after the stress response. And Dr. Cellier has done a wonderful job talking about what stress does in the body. And stress basically is behind 95+% of every single illness, mental, emotional, physical, and, dare I say spiritual. But basically, the concept and the idea is anyone with a high stress level, and we all are in a stress level unless we choose to live in a bubble. And I would love to live in a bubble, by the way, if I could. I got to find one.
Big enough to fit you.
The government keeps taking the bubbles away, one by one, but that's okay. Until we are ready to live in a bubble, one has to deal with the world, and the way to do that is to optimize your hormones. And by the way, DHEA is a wonderful and absolutely essential hormone that becomes deficient as we age, even if we do everything normally.
Actually, the healthiest of persons by age 80 has lost 90% of what they had at age 25. And even by age 50, most people have lost 50% of what they had. And when you lose it, you lose your bon vivant. You lose your energy, your feeling of being okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it helps you make testosterone or estrogen, whichever you need most. And the interesting thing about it is that the precursor, or one of the precursors to help you make DHEA, is natural progesterone. Now, men and women make progesterone, but women after menopause make virtually none. And by that age, most men have lost most of their ability to make progesterone. That's what got me interested in this whole thing in the first place. I took 12 men who had very low levels of DHEA, and we gave them natural progesterone, just one thing, natural progesterone. In 1 month, the DHEA came up an average of 60% over what they started with. Now, we've got things that'll bring it up a lot more back towards normal, but that's quite strikingly significant. And then I think the next one that I measured was with magnesium, because 80% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. And we found that taking by mouth, it will not raise your DHEA one iota. But using magnesium lotion, the Shealy-Sorin magnesium lotion, 2 teaspoons twice a day on your skin, raises your DHEA 60%.
Yeah.
Then I tried vitamin C. And interestingly, I found that vitamin C alone does not do anything for DHEA. It has many other benefits. And I tried separately MSM, methylsulfonylmethane. It doesn't do anything. But when you put 2 grams of vitamin C with 500 milligrams of MSM, or double that in the youth formula, it raises your DHEA 60%.
Mm-hmm.
And the final wonderful component of this is Fire Bliss, the transcutaneous acupuncture. You don't need no needles. You just dab it on out of a roll-on bottle. So each of these individually raises DHEA 60%. When you put all 4 together, it actually raises it 250%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's slightly more than 4 times each of them.
It's absolutely fascinating. I've been basically, I've gotten interested in hormones ever since an early age, but personally and professionally, by the way, I'll share a little story here. So on the professional level, of course, the hormones are fascinating because everything affects everything. Now, this is where when we talk about holism, you have to, the understanding is you don't separate the heart from the lung, from the brain. I mean, we're not a laboratory experiment where you can have all these components separately and, disregarding the interactions between everything that a human is, mind, body, and spirit. And interestingly enough, speaking of mind, body, and spirit, so we mentioned the 4 ways that you can increase your natural DHEA without taking it. Make it, don't take it. And that's wonderful because that's the safest and the best way to go about it in terms of in this topic. Go ahead, please.
Now let's look at another error that most physicians make,
Mm-hmm.
and that is DHEA sulfate.
Yes.
A majority of your DHEA is actually attached to a sulfate molecule, but it doesn't do anything for your free, usable DHEA.
Mm-hmm.
You must not even worry with bothering with measuring DHEA sulfate. And we've tried 3 separate labs, which suck. They're terrible. The only lab that's really accurate for free DHEA is Nichols in Capistrano, California. And you don't even waste your blood measuring the sulfate. Get only the free DHEA at Nichols Lab, and that'll tell you just how much you need to restore your DHEA.
I'm just going to assume in today's world, with today's environment and everything else, everybody's going to need a DHEA support.
Well, we just finished our 3rd experiment in the last year and a half
Mm-hmm.
of trying to raise the telomeres, the tips of your DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, the pandemic has screwed the world.
Well, it sure has.
And it has raped and devastated everything. I haven't measured DHEA in this situation, but we've measured telomeres. And, you must learn to detach from the whale manure.
Exactly.
I call it that because it's an insult to the bull to call it BS.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Now, just for the record, if we will welcome question in the second part of the show, but we just wanted to bring you the information uninterrupted about hormones, about everything, and we're happy to take any questions whatsoever. But I do want to give a heads up. We do want to continue staying on the air. We want to continue bringing proper, scientifically proven information that helps people's lives. And if we're going to do that, there are certain realities in our current world, including, censorship of various sorts. And so we're not going to be saying anything any keywords that are related to the hot topics here, but please read between the lines. And actually, I will say this, I don't think that's a hot word yet. Fear-demic. I'll say that word. Okay, but the fear-demic is actually what it's doing is, now, again, we've talked about a lot of these things in the immune system, but there is nothing that's going to compromise your hormones, your entire well-being, than constant, ongoing, continuous fear and an assault on our minds, on our spirits, on our bodies. And now we can all deal with acute stuff, but when it becomes chronic, that's when it starts killing us. And that is when we have to say, now, I don't control the government. I don't think I would want to control the government. I don't have. I want nothing to do with the government whatsoever. I really do.
I'd just soon die as be in a political job.
I agree, especially everything that's going on right now. So, but the bottom line is, as long as the situation continues, we have to have a way of taking care of ourselves. And if we don't, if we're not taking care of ourselves, then by definition, things are going to take their toll at some point. Now, I do want to mention some other things. So now, the package of DHEA support, you got Youth and Essentials, so that's your good basic B-complex multivitamin. You got your vitamin C, you got your DHEA, you've got your eugesterone, which is support it's a hormonal support. It's a progesterone. Yeah. And you've got the Fire Bliss, which works on the entire hormonal system from the pineal all the way down.
Yes, and interestingly, it is good for depression as well.
Of course, but I've never seen a person who is depressed who had normal DHEA
well,
levels.
Of course not. I haven't seen a person with any illness that has a normal DHEA.
But let's also, and DHEA is a huge topic. We'll take all the questions we have. There is actually a booklet, free DHEA hormone restoration guide, which is present on the on the link. And please feel free to download. It's not just the things that we talked about. It's everything about that makes you happy, that increases your DHEA, from laughter to exercise to lifestyle. But I do want to focus on one thing, which is we're talking about hormones. And one of my personal stories is, it's also personal. It's not just professional. So both my wife and I are on hormones. Now, we don't always go that route. The first thing is always lifestyle essentials, proper supplementation, nutrition, activity, exercise, sleep, rest, stress management, all these things. And I am taking the full DHEA support panel, but I'm also doing a lot more than that, as a matter of fact. And one thing I discovered is that even though I was feeling better, I still wasn't 100%, or in other words, I wasn't feeling like my 20-year-old self. And Norm has a saying that he feels like a 26-year-old. Now, 26 was a good year in your life.
Absolutely. That's the year in which I got married, but I was at the peak of my life energy at that point, and I still am at 80, almost 89.
A couple of years ago, I discovered that my mind was a little sluggish compared to where I normally am. Energy, the motivation, but also workouts. I've been working out on a regular basis, various things, and I've noticed that the intensity of the workouts and the results were also different. Now, interestingly enough, it was actually, in retrospect, it was terrible to notice, but both me and my wife were basically walking dead in some ways. We were basically just
existing.
We were existing. We weren't enjoying and partaking fully in this thing called life. And then I measured my levels, and I did a standard panel, and I discovered that my testosterone level was on the low normal. Now, low normal means I've got the level of somebody who is basically an 80-year-old with a lot of medical illnesses, now, and that's not okay.
I do want to mention, of course, because because the chemotherapy you had,
yes,
about 10 years earlier, that could have clobbered. It kills everything. Fortunately, you only had a couple of doses, I think.
I did, but it aged me beyond
Oh, yeah.
anything that I could tell.
If it doesn't age you, it kills you.
Exactly. So it aged me, didn't kill me. But we're getting through it. It's good. So anyway, what I'm saying is that led me to discover for myself. I became the client number one, and then also for others, the something called Simply Tea. And I guess the point is not so much the program itself, but the concept behind it and what it does. If the male hormones, for example, testosterone, progesterone, estrogens, I mean, we all have all of those. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, all these things, and they all interrelate and interplay with each other. Everything is related. And once I got on the program myself, and I designed a program that is different from the standard, and I'll talk about that. I found out that my cholesterol that was borderline abnormal. Now I did my best to keep it from getting worse, but it normalized. Any kind of blood pressure normalized. Sugar normalized.
Now, it's very interesting. I suspect that all those years, you were also drinking fluoridated water.
I sure have.
Well, fluoride is one of the greatest poisons in the history of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to every city government, the stupid ones, 72% of all people in this country are drinking poison. Mm-hmm. It has lowered the sperm count, which means it has also lowered the testosterone count, obviously.
Yes.
It has lowered the sperm count from 150 million to 40 million. And if we don't stop the blank stuff, within 20 years, there will be no more babies, period. And we can't do anything to help you get rid of the fluoride except advise you to stop drinking it and be careful about bottled water. 50% of all bottled water has fluoride in it because it's made out of city water.
Yep, absolutely. And that's a huge topic. So when and interestingly enough, just want to get back to the program and what it means to be on hormones, male and female. Now, first of all, you got to be tested properly. It's not something that we just jump into, and there's many reasons why people might not feel they're optimal, whether it's a man or a woman. But if the hormones are indeed in a place where they could use the support, this is what I discovered. Normally, people do every 2 weeks apart the shot of a higher dose of testosterone, and they do nothing else besides that. And I discovered a very big flaw with that, because if I was going to be on the program myself, I wasn't going to do crap to my body, excuse me, the expression. But so I started researching and looking into it, and I started learning more about the endocrine and the hormonal, one of my favorite topics back in the days. And I figured out that you got to have something that not only builds the testosterone. We use the injectable, could be subcutaneous, weekly. Smaller doses are necessary, are required because you're doing it more effectively. There's a blocking agent, such as an estradiol or something, that keeps the testosterone from going into estrogens. And by the way, if you're a man, having man boobs is not exactly a good quality for health or otherwise. So, and that can happen when people, again, if you're not careful, and you got to monitor carefully as well on a regular basis. Last but not least, I do not start anybody on any kind of hormones, I'm talking about men, without increasing their own production of testosterone and otherwise. And DHEA package is the first and the basic requirement that I give people, that if they're going to optimize their life, they got to do that. But there are also other things that we can do. Go ahead, please.
And I want to mention, of course, in women, after menopause, if they have a lot of symptoms, which can be all over the place, but a little bit hot flashes and agitation and anxiety and not sleeping well, they also need a little bit of testosterone.
Yes, smaller amount, but absolutely. And that's by the way, I also have a women's support program. I found out something really interesting. I got a lot of complaints in the practice, basically not from the patient, not from the men, because I started with a men's program, but from the women, because most of the men became
hornier.
Yes, okay, that. And the wives just literally would, at some point there's a relationship that becomes established with a couple, and so now at this point, now the wives needed support, or the women. So my wife myself, I noticed there was, when I picked my life up, my wife was still in a bad place, so I got her on hormones. It's a different combination, different concept, but same, or same idea, I should say, is that normalizing things, it's not just for the muscle, it's not just for the workouts, it's not just for how you look, it's how you feel, it's your mental state, it's your mood, it's your energy, it's your internal everything.
It's
And
you, period.
It's you, it's who you are. And if the body is working properly, everything's going to work properly, more or less. If it's not working properly, nothing's going to work properly. So that's why it's so important to not only recognize that there's a problem, but to do something about it in the right way.
Now, I do want to mention that one of the most important components of the package is magnesium lotion. And it's interesting that it does raise DHEA, but it has many, many other benefits. It helps regulate your pulse rate, your blood pressure, your energy in general. It is involved in 350 different processes in the human body. So even if you don't do the rest of the DHEA package, almost everybody in this country needs it because our food is deficient. Our soil is deficient in magnesium. And magnesium pills suck.
Mm-hmm.
They are a waste of money and time unless you want a laxative.
Well, that's my favorite line. If you want a laxative, take magnesium by mouth. It does a wonderful job. But Norm, you're actually absolutely 100% right. So you start with the basics. So what is holistic approach to hormones? Lifestyle. We talk about that every single show. Exercise, nutrition, activity, sleep, rest, stress. Now we will cover that. We've covered that in more detail, and we'll cover that in more detail. We're just talking about the time right now. But besides that, proper supplementation and what we talked about in the DHEA package is essential. That's your basic hormone support. Now, beyond that, if you're still not feeling optimal and you want to be tested properly and treated properly, then obviously feel free to give us a call. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's called Simply T Program, and it's pretty basically all inclusive.
What do you call it for women?
Simply, okay, it's a little different. It's a slightly different name. Simply HRT. Hormone replacement therapy. But by the way, for women, I'm going to say this is very important because more, unfortunately, more women care about their bodies than men do, which is kind of crazy.
That's generally true overall.
But women, especially menopause, perimenopause, all these things, but even abnormalities. One of the biggest problems with hormones is the conventional hormones or the equine or horse derived. We're not horses. We are humans. We're not. It's not the same chemical formula. It's similar. It's not the same. So I see a lot of people in birth control, but basically that have a lot of period irregularities, lots of issues,
and hypertension,
and the list goes on. Now, people have tried to. Community have tried to equate every hormone therapy as the same, but there is a difference between synthetic horse-based and human-based ratios.
And it ain't holistic if it's not the real thing. We'll be back with you after the break.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll be with our television crowd right now. So check and see if there are any questions so far, and we'll be back with you in 5 minutes. Oh, yeah.
When we come back. Yeah. So do we have...
I don't think so. We didn't a little while ago. Oh, well, now we do.
I guess I got somebody's attention.
Call me a liar.
Okay, what do we got?
What do you recommend taking to get rid of parasites?
I do like walnut hull, I think it is. I can't remember the exact name of the product, but if you send me an email, I'll be happy to give you exactly the brand that I like. Norm at normshealy.com. It is some extract from walnut.
One other thing that I've used with good success, diatomaceous earth.
Yeah.
It's basically, think of it as basically tiny little razor blades that basically get in there and cut open whatever is the parasite. Now, there's a way to do it, but just following the instructions, that's much better than many of the options. Yep, let's...
And poisons.
And poisons, yeah. Synthetic poisons, to be exact, yeah.
All right. And another question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about
Nootropics.
How do you feel about that?
I think they can be important, depending upon whether you're using natural things or artificial drugs.
I agree. There is first you have to see, and you got to be in contact with somebody who truly understands this from a holistic perspective. Because if you anything other than that, if you mess with one part but not become aware of the big picture, you can do a lot of
Harm.
Yes, but if you do it right, it's great. Yeah. Mhm.
What is the normal range for testosterone?
Normal range of testosterone.
It says, my insurance won't cover anything unless my level is below 250.
Okay, basically, all right. The question is, I'll repeat it. My insurance will not cover anything for testosterone if the level is below 250. This is
Serious.
this is serious whale. No, that's not whale.
Whale manure.
Whale manure.
Yeah.
I think this is more of a less than that because
Yes.
we can't equate. But yeah, that's nonsense. That really is nonsense. That's basically a level of somebody who is very old, very ill, and not doing well. So the insurance never covered anything of value to begin with.
If you're below 300, you're having serious symptoms.
Yeah. So I don't treat the numbers. Here's the answer. Now, you could be on the low normal, but if you exhibit the symptoms and the clinical, I'm going to treat the person. I'm not going to treat the number. But the other thing too, I don't accept insurance. I don't go with insurance. That's why I'm able to do the right thing.
That's why I wrote a book called Third Party Rape.
Yes. And that perfect title. Yeah.
So is there a normal range?
Normal range. I like to see free testosterone at least 500 to 600.
Yeah,
At least.
Yeah, I'd say even personally, I like 600 and above, and up to 1200.
Yeah. Now, sometimes you go above, and that's not good either. That has its problems. So that's why you have to monitor carefully. But the level where you are, let me just put it this way: anyone who is basically waiting for insurance to pay for their health in general, but not even talking about hormones. If you're gonna wait, if a person is gonna wait for the insurance to start kicking in, insurance mafia, they have no interest in getting you healthy. So you either that's why we're a cash practice, and that's why we don't take guidance or mandates. That's another big word from
the insurance mafia.
Insurance mafia.
And I'm being kind.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Now we've got about 45 seconds until we're back in.
45 seconds before we come in.
Question, or do you want to just talk for?
Quick question.
A quick question is, can you take youth formula if I have a sulfa allergy?
Can we take youth formula if there's a sulfa allergy? That's the question.
What I would find out, I have not personally seen an allergy MSM. Mm-hmm. However, what I would do is get yourself a bottle of MSM and take the smallest possible dose and test to whether or not you're allergic to it. Yes. It's possible. Anything's possible in this world.
Possible, although not likely.
Not likely. I haven't had any reports. We've got literally many hundreds of people taking youth formula and I haven't had a report of allergies, but please let us know.
I think we're almost out of
and
time.
We are back to live radio.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Whenever we're back.
Okay, now it is time for you to call us at 417-447-1777. So for the next half hour, almost 25 minutes, whatever, you will be able to ask anything you want to ask about anything, not just today's topic. But here we go. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Shealy.
Yes.
What should I take with the liposomal vitamin C that I hold under my tongue?
I would add MSM.
Okay.
1 gram a day.
And do it when I have the vitamin C at the same time?
Yeah, not immediately after, but within a few minutes of it, yes.
Okay, and you think that does as much good as swallowing it?
Oh, heavens, yes. Even when you hold it under your tongue, it still eventually gets down into your stomach.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Mm-hmm. We have a little time to talk.
Now, I do want to say that in general, for health across the board, and especially in today's climate, you also need vitamin D3. It's not part of the DHEA restriction, it's part of your health and immune system. If you weigh 140 pounds or more, you should be taking 50,000 units of vitamin D3 once a week. If you weigh under 140 pounds, 50,000 units the first, 10th, and 20th of every month. It's much better to do it on the first, 10th, and 20th than try to do it every 10 days, which comes different every month.
Indeed, absolutely. And that vitamin D is a hormone in itself.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it is the number one thing for your immune system in general. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hi, Dr. Shealy.
Yes.
I have a question about, so at the beginning of the program, you were talking about a study involving 12 men, and I didn't quite catch what you said, what you gave them the first time, because I know you talked about the magnesium, then you added the MSM,
Right.
and then the fire bleach, but what was the first thing? I didn't catch that.
Natural progesterone.
Okay, natural
We call it
progesterone.
EU. EU means total normal. Eugesterone. Okay. And that men and women need that, and from it you can make DHEA.
Okay, and how does that come in? Cream or pills?
It's a cream, and it comes in a pump bottle. So you just push the liver down. That's one pump. Mm-hmm. And in the men, actually, I had them put it on the testicle because the skin there is the most vascular skin in the body, and that's where they need to make part of their DHEA. But putting it anywhere on the skin is going to work.
Okay. And then Dr. Sorin, and then you mentioned also the name of the lab. So I did a search for the name of the lab, and it sounded like nickel.
Nichols. Nichols in Capistrano, California. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll look that up then. Okay. And then Dr. Sorin was talking about, I think Dr. Sorin, you mentioned that you actually were using some kind of natural hormone, right?
Yes. I started out with a DHEA package. Made me feel about 50% better, but it wasn't enough to be... Now, I'm comparing myself to my very best 20-year-old jock, athlete self, so I mean, I'm talking about that kind of performance, clarity,
right.
I'm in my 40s now, and I feel like that right now. But yes, I started with that, and then I started supplementing. I call it supplementation with the testosterone and the rest of the program. And then I got my wife on the program because she couldn't keep up with me, or energy-wise and everything else. So now we're both wondering how we ever lived, before those days. I mean, I think we were basically walking dead to some degree.
Now, I do want to mention that soon to be 89 years of age, my DHA level is still good. But I've been maintaining this for 20 years using everything we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I think it's so possible. I was just on a 2-hour webinar with Dr. Jeffrey Bland, the head of the... I
know Jeff well. Yes.
Yeah. So, and he's 70. He said he was 75. But what was interesting is he's so sharp. And I always notice that first about a person. It doesn't matter what their age is. It's how quick. And he speaks very quickly. And like the way his speech pattern and the words that he chooses, he's very articulate. And I just think, that's really, for me, a determinant of how old or how young someone appears. It's their speech pattern. It's how they talk. Some people, like my dad's in the 70s, but he's nowhere near as sharp. You can see that there's like some brain fog there. Mm-hmm. So when he speaks and that sort of thing. So I really think that's one of the things that we can really fix. I don't think that that's a foregone conclusion when you're in your 70s, because I hear you, Dr. Shealy, and I just listened to your talk. You did a presentation for the Medical Intuitive, which was
right
for the Shift Network, which I thought was amazing. And I loved, I'm not going to say what you said, but you referred to something and you said, I'm not going to say it, but I think you know what I'm referring to.
Yes, we're reading between the lines. Yes, thank you very much.
And,
I appreciate you.
And I just love hearing you say that. And I also, speaking with somebody else I just spoke to, she said the same thing. So that really helped me feel better that I was on the right track with what I was thinking. But so that's great. So I have the lab. So in terms of a natural way of like replacing these hormones, would you say that's what it is, like progesterone cream?
It's a start. It's
Well,
a good
that's
start.
You need the magnesium lotion and
Right.
and you need the whole package to do much.
That's a good basic foundation for anyone who is not yet doing that.
Yes.
If you're not,
Okay.
I think we talk about the essentials, essential supplements. DHEA is the essential thing for our life.
Right. Right. I just started I'm a registered nurse, but I just started the functional diagnostic nutrition program.
Wonderful.
So we're learning about the hormones, and I feel like some people just go straight to the hormone replacement, and I really want to see, really check my labs and see what you can do without having to replace something, just to see as a starting point, and then just go from there and do everything. Do the Fire Bliss.
Yes.
I even bought Dr. Sheila. I even bought your TENS unit.
Good.
Yeah. So and just seeing that sort of experiment on myself.
Good on you, mate.
I'll tell you, I love your approach. I always start out a person, if they have crappy lifestyle, that's the first thing I look at. I don't even start with hormones. You got to correct the lifestyle. Number two, if there's not proper supplementation, DHEA support, then I make sure they do that. Now, stress management. Stress is a huge factor. Autogenic training, biogenicscourse.com. So that's my first go-to. Now, then there comes testing. And then if the testing still shows that there's a benefit to the replacement, only then do I proceed forward. But again, it's a discussion between me and the client always, and it's an individual decision. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for this. I'm going to experiment, and then I'll be back, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
And now is your turn, 417-447-1777. And I do want to mention, this morning I saw a man who has, very serious advanced problems in his whole body. And my first question was, what do you eat? He said, I eat 2 eggs for breakfast, and after that is fast food. I said, you're lucky to be alive. Fast food is junk, junk, junk. I wouldn't trust a cup of coffee in a fast food restaurant. It's probably loaded with monosodium glutamate. So you've got to eat real food, and fast food ain't real.
One of the easiest ways to tank your hormone levels or cause imbalance is
eat at McDonald's and such places.
Yes.
I don't hold them out alone because they all suck. Yeah. But McDonald's was the first one that really turned me off totally when I took just one bite and spit it out. And good afternoon. You're on the air.
Yeah, two questions for you. My mom had that diverticulosis in her colon.
Yeah, diverticulosis.
Probably saying it wrong. But you told me a couple weeks ago what to give her, which I did. But the doctor gave her Xanax for her stress. Is there something natural?
Xanax for the stress. Yes.
Xanax,
not her stress.
Xanax sucks. It's one of the worst drugs in the world, and it's for her brain, not for her gut.
There is many alternatives. One among the best, and of course, you want to start with the DHA support, essentials, B complex, vitamin C, youth formula. But then you also want to add a combination of, and there's various dosage on that depending on the person, size, weight, situation. Taurine, lithium, and tryptophan. Taurine is a stabilizer of the central nervous system. It stabilizes the electrical charge across the cell membrane. So you're working with trillions of cells there.
Tryptophan plus taurine plus lithium orotate are 1 trillion times better than all the psychologists and psychiatrists and drugs in the world.
And stress management with autogenic training.
Autogenic training, yes.
Okay, and then my dad, he has been diagnosed with dementia. But he's on what's that called? The blood thinner.
Eliquis or Coumadin or something like that?
Yeah, he's on Coumadin. Yeah.
Coumadin, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, now the only treatment for him, of course, is the basic vitamins, but also I cannot reverse that thing without the gamma PEMF device.
Mm-hmm.
My most difficult patient was unable to stand or talk. in 1 month, he walked into the clinic after using the Gamma Pimp on his head.
But see, let's take again. I'm sorry, it was hard to hear you.
Gamma PEMF. You can find it on our website. If you need more help with it, get a focused consultation with us on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, awesome. Okay, thank you for your help.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, blessings.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Yep. Now, I do want to mention briefly, we keep talking about the clinic, but we didn't give any information about the clinic.
Real Holistic Doc, RealHolisticDoc.com. Right there on the internet. And of course, our clinic phone number is 417-351-5221. And we do a lot of consults these days, especially by Zoom or even on the phone or Skype. And it works almost as well as being in the office, although we can't examine you, but we can line up what needs to be done.
Yeah, certainly makes it easier to get in when you don't without getting in, so
Exactly.
to speak. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. Now, we have a little bit of time now. I was actually in a place that you and I both like recently. It's right here in town in Springfield. Do you want to take a guess at where we are? What I'm talking about? Spring Valley?
The health food. Yes.
Good place.
You can buy all your supplements here in Springfield at Spring Valley Natural Foods. Right there on Glenstone, just a block north of Sunshine. I like Spring Valley because of the service. They've probably got 5,000 or 10,000 different items in there. Just walk in, they come to help you. You can't find those at the big health food stores. They expect you to go hunting through 10,000 things to find what you need. Spring Valley Natural Food. They carry all of our goodies, by the way. The Shealy-Sorin products, the magnesium lotion, the multivitamin, everything we order. And, of course, at the real grocery stores, and I think there's only one in Springfield, in the produce department, you can find nature-blessed tart cherry juice concentrate. Wonderful tasting, lowers your blood pressure, lowers your cholesterol, anti-inflammatory, tastes smashingly good, and gives you the equivalent of 3.5 servings of the best fruits and vegetables in the world. And so Nature Blessed Tart Cherry Juice Concentrate is my favorite. And good afternoon. You're on the air.
Yes. I have a question about the shingles vaccine.
Shingles vaccine.
Well, let me tell you something. At age 18, I had shingles. I was in college, but obviously stressed out in some way. I developed shingles. I was treated at Duke University by the chairman of dermatology, idiot, who gave me treatment with X-ray therapy for 2 weeks. The shingles were cloned in 2 weeks. I didn't have that much trouble. In July of last year, I developed the worst case of shingles I've ever seen, from my knees all the way up to my shoulders. Now, if I had the shingles and it didn't give me immunity, how could a vaccine do it? I've never had a vaccine of that kind, and I haven't had any in the last 44 years, and would not under any circumstance take it. I would keep my immune system healthy.
Mm-hmm. Just for the record, for anybody else listening, we made a general statement. We're not talking about a specific word that we're talking about.
The current fad.
Yeah, the one, the prohibited topic. But I do hope you can read between the lines, because that's, it's pretty straightforward there.
I say do everything you can to keep your immune system strong, but avoid vaccines.
Now, the best vaccination, so to speak, the best immunization as a concept would be actually autogenic training and stress management and the proper prevention. That's...
But in fact, I cured myself with the Gamma Pimp when I got bad with the shingles too. So the Gamma Pimp can take you even when things have gotten bad.
And Gamma PEMF, actually, the way that the device works is it works on every single cell, trillions of cells. So it basically works from bottom, from the building blocks on up. But I'm sorry, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I do. One more about shingles. But I have a cousin who has it. Is there anything to help clear it up quicker?
PEMF device, I think.
The only thing I know is the Gamma Pimp. If it's bad, it's worth trying.
Now, are you local in Springfield, Missouri? Are they local in Springfield?
No.
Okay.
No.
If you were here, I would also say come down for an intravenous ozone and vitamin C. We had a client who was almost, actually, she was worse than you. It was basically everywhere. She was near death, as a matter of fact. And we turned her around within a week. After the first treatment with intravenous therapy, she was already 50% better.
Look for a holistic clinic. If you don't have a holistic clinic, you're out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have two more questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
One is, when I had my last physical, I'm due for a tetanus shot.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I had them growing up, and actually until about 40 years ago, I had it every 10 years, and it never harmed me.
Well, I am not sure that there's a value to that. Ultimately,
I wonder also.
Now, we do have to ask. Part of the emergency room work that I do, it's one of the required questions. Especially with injury or any kind of cut or laceration, which I see a lot of, basically. And by policy and procedure, yes, I need to ask and give tetanus shot. But have I seen an actual live tetanus disease? No. And I've been practicing for 20 plus years.
Yeah. And then one more, and then I won't say that word again.
That's okay.
Diphtheria?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah. Uh-huh.
How about diphtheria?
Diphtheria, I'd say the same concept. The entire idea of natural immunity versus forced immunity. Forced immunity, just listen to how that feels and how that sounds. You'll know the answer from your gut, but I can also tell you scientifically that natural immunity is how we were made. That's how we were built. And I don't, frankly speaking, and again, I'm out of my element here in terms of being a doctor, but the Creator, God, made us how we should be, ideally. Man is never ever going to come nearly close to doing God's work. On that level. So listen to the body, learn what the body does, and just let the body do what it does with all the proper support. All this talk about forced or unnatural ways to stimulate immune system or otherwise, you can stimulate it, you can hyperstimulate it, you can understimulate it. It's not a question of what you put in the body as much as what the body does with it. But some things I wouldn't recommend putting in your body. I'm just going to leave it there. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Blessings.
calling.
Yeah.
And folks, I do want to mention a little bit more about the Gamma Pimp device. It, for depression and anxiety, is better than all the psychiatrists, all the psychologists, or all the mood drugs in the world. It is fantastic for severe anxiety, especially. It is good for opioid addiction. Now, interestingly, the opioid addiction centers suck as badly as most of the rest of the system. They treat you for 1 to 3 months, and they have a 17% success rate. We have a 100% success rate with opioid addiction if the person is ready to do it. So, Gamma Pimp is definitely worth very serious consideration. And if you need help with that, of course, we'd be delighted to have a consultation with you at 417-351-5221.
And I'm going to mention something about this is advice you gave me. Now, I recently lost our dog of 11 years. It's a beautiful German Shepherd, long-haired, and I didn't think it would get me as hard as it did, but it did. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Family member, really, better, closer friend than many that I know. And so I did use the PEMF on the dog, and she loved it. Again, it wasn't, she was getting closer to her days. But then I found myself in a bad place, and I put the PEMF on my head, at least 2 hours a day minimum. And after, I'd say, 2 or 3 days, I was already feeling better.
Yeah, well, it is great for the brain, especially, and mood in every conceivable way. But it's good anywhere you put it on the body. And the nice thing about it, I demonstrate it in my office frequently. If it's touching your body, your whole body gets it. If it was on your feet, your brain would only get 50%. If it's on your chest, your brain might get 60 or 70%. If it's on your head, you get 100%. But every part of your body gets it no matter where you have it on the body. So it actually has a little more effect. For instance, if you've got hypertension or the heart disease, right over the heart would be preferable. But use it. It is, well, I sit with it at the office. I'm probably sitting 4 hours of the day. with it, and then I sleep with it on my abdomen all night.
I had a consultation with a person. It's basically this was a virtual intensive. This is a program that we have where we guide a person in their own home. We used to have it in our building, but it's so much easier now for people without having to travel to do the program, whether it's biogenics, self-retraining, plus the guidance and all the proper tools, including PEMF. And this was a interesting situation where a person has not succeeded with anything, including multiple rehabilitations and so on and so forth. Now, but again, the 17% success rate is not that great, and they didn't call me after that week, so I assumed that they dropped off. I assumed that they were. I got a call from a family member saying, with all kinds of accolades and asking for another PEMF because they didn't need to talk to me anymore. He was doing so well, and that makes me happy.
Of course.
Yeah.
It is, well, if you got a problem, the only contraindication is pregnancy or a pacemaker.
Yeah.
And pregnancy, I just don't know because I wouldn't do the research to find out. But I've used it in many, many hundreds of people otherwise.
And let's summarize a little bit about the topic today. So we're talking about the hormones, one of the quintessential hormones and a precursor to many other things, including sex hormones for men and women, is DHEA. And there's a DHEA package, and there's also a free DHEA hormone restoration guide. And there's a link available for those who follow us on YouTube Live and Facebook Live. And Steve, if you want to start with that, now that is an essential package, and it has 4 things that raise DHEA naturally. But I also want to mention that when you need to go beyond that, or if you're not feeling at your best self, there is a place indeed for a holistic, and when I mean holistic, lifestyle, supplements, stress management, but also replacement for the hormones for men and women. And when it's right, when it's appropriate, it can do so much for the mind, for the motivation, for brain, for vascular.
And my feeling
everything.
About conventional endocrinology is it's almost as bad as psychiatry.
Indeed.
In what it does with the drugs, the artificial things. So
yes,
go the holistic route. It's the only thing that is healthy and whole and spiritual.
Yes.
And folks, until next week, the chances are you can visit us at realholisticdoc.com, but have a good week.
Blessings. Now we are officially done with the program, but what about
check any of the questions we might answer?
Brand supplement. Now, because there is DHEA supplementation in itself. A person can take DHEA. There is a time and a place for everything, including oral DHEA that you take by mouth. And there's one of those situations, and I'll have Dr. Shealy jump in because this is one of his favorite topics, is if a person is on steroids, whether chronic steroids or acute steroids.
Yeah, if you're on cortisone or any relative of that, a steroid, you need to take an equal amount of DHEA. But once you're off the steroid, wean yourself from the oral DHEA package.
Is there any circumstance that you would jump to DHEA supplement before doing the four things?
Well, in a very serious immune disorder, sure, why not?
Okay.
If you're really very sick with an autoimmune or some other disease, it's okay to start with it, but you want to get off it and start. It takes up to a month to restore.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes. And how much diatomaceous earth do you take?
How much diatomaceous earth? Okay, that's actually the way that I do that is I mix it with a little water. It's a teaspoon or so. Now again, you could do more, you can do less, but I try to do it several times a day if I remember, at least in the morning. And it's interesting when you do that. If you experience any kind of a detoxification reaction, again, that's not surprising because what happens is as the parasitic load and whatever else gets released into the bloodstream, again, the body has to deal with it, but that's a good problem to have. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Are there side effects from ivermectin used at a normal dose?
Yes, of course. Look it up on the internet. I definitely think if you just look up ivermectin side effects, it'll take you right to where you want to go.
Now, it's interesting. I'll say something about this because that's one of my favorite medications. I've been threatened by pharmacies that that they'll report me multiple times. That's not going to stop me. Let's put it that way. I've threatened them with this, with an equal and opposite, that they're ignoring doctor's orders, basically. But if you pharmacy, for example, CVS as a pharmacy chain, it basically from the top down, they are going to fight everything. They're going to fight you. They're going to fight the doctor. Now, if you can find an independent small pharmacy, fantastic. If you can't, obviously you got to deal with whatever you got to deal with. The ivermectin technically has certain side effects. And if you look at the literature, it says be careful of cardiac, be careful with central nervous system, and so on and so forth. Now, if you actually look at the information that's out there, now, if you look at the parasitic disease and the ivermectin, you see one set of warnings, and it's actually almost nothing. It says, practically safe, very rare. Now, if you look at the certain disease, I'm not going to say the name, and ivermectin, all of a sudden you got big red letters everywhere. Danger, danger, danger. This is don't use it. Don't ever use it. Don't even think about using it. And if you think about it, stop thinking. Okay, so basically, it's a double standard, and I don't see how that's not obvious to every single person looking at it, but I guess brainwashing can come a long way. So yes, is there potential theoretical side effect? Have I ever seen it? Not after years of prescribing it, and especially lately. And a lot of people are asking for that. Now the question is, can you find a pharmacy that's not going to fight you and me, so to speak, to get it? That's the key. Yeah.
All right, let's see. With regard to the PMF device, how do you use it at night for health benefits other than sleep? And what program do you set it at?
I'm going to repeat the question. That's very important. There are 3 modes on the PMF device, and then let's go. Okay, so the first mode. Do you want to go through that?
That's the chakra sweep.
Yeah.
That goes from 5.83 to 56.81. That's the one I use invariably. For people who need it, particularly for extreme anxiety, I use the second mode, which is the gamma sweep. And if you want to use it to help you sleep, you put it on the delta mode, but that's the only time I would use the delta mode.
That's the third mode. Now,
some people can use it under their pillow, but I hear a flick, click, click, click when I put it under my pillow. And I had a patient this morning who used a click, click, click under the pillow.
But that's what helped me sleep. I like that click.
Oh, well, I don't like the click, but I wear it on my belly or on my chest.
Gotcha. Well, different people, different strokes. That's. But the bottom line is, it depends on what you want to accomplish. If it's the pain that's keeping you away from sleep or worry or anxiety, you may want to do the gamma mode. If it's primarily just musculoskeletal, then the first mode, the gamma sweep. If it's sleep support,
chakra sweep.
Yeah. And then there's the that's right. And then there's a third mode, which is the delta, which is the stage 3 deep sleep, and then it just does a wonderful job for relaxation. It still does other benefits too, by the way, but primarily that. All around, just a great question. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of questions. How much more do you want to do?
Oh, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is something similar to neurotropics
Okay.
that is natural and gives one energy, memory, motivation, and helps ADHD?
Okay, let's talk about, good question. Let's repeat it. What are the natural modalities and ways to as an alternative to neurotropics?
Well, actually, I don't like any drug. There's not one in the world I would use or recommend. However, if you can find it, and there's one company that still makes it despite your Federal Death Administration, that's NAC.
Yes.
But second is NADH, and third is acetyl L-carnitine. All of these are natural soporifics for the brain.
I also find benefit with something called lecithin.
Oh, lecithin's good because it helps you make acetylcholine.
That's right.
Yes,
Plus, it's components of the brain.
Yeah.
So these are good things, but on top of the essentials, such as B complex, such as essentials, youth formula, vitamin C, molybdenum, other things. But the big thing is we talked about DHEA package. That's important. On top of that, there's a way to optimize the brain. Now, there's other ways to optimize the brain.
Well, autogenic training is a basic, but the gamma pimp is second.
That's it. And by the way, when I put the ring on, the gamma, I literally feel like I'm in zone. It's wonderful. That's the best neurotropic there that I could think of, really. But yeah.
Okay. This isn't going to be a short answer.
Uh-huh.
Have either of you had the current illness going around?
I have not.
And if so, how do you treat it?
I have. I got hit. Again, I've been exposed for over a year. Well, ever since the whole thing started, and I've been basically in and out of the rooms with sick people in the hospital, including I had to intubate people and so on and so when needed. I avoid that as much as possible because that's not a good situation ultimately. How do we treat it? In the hospital setting, my hands are tied. My hands are literally tied. I cannot do the right thing. Otherwise, I lose my license. Now, I do as much as I can. In the office, there is, now you've heard the ivermectin. Again, I'm not going to say it out loud. That works. There's a steroid medications that helps to decrease inflammation. And there's also an antibiotic. It's called Z-Pak, azithromycin, which happens to have antiviral activity as well. And again, with the entire uncertainty, I've used the protocol for over a year and a half with really wonderful success. I haven't had anyone go in a hospital. I kept myself out of a hospital. My oxygenation was in the 80s at one point. So I got hit pretty hard with now it was pneumonia that got me, by the way, double pneumonia. I went through about a bunch of IVs, intravenous vitamin C, ozone. Immediately after that, my oxygenation came right up, so I didn't have to be hospitalized. I used to be EMF. That's another thing that really did amazing. I upped all my supplements, fluids, and basically the combination of meds. In other words, a little bit of a steroid, a little bit of antibiotic, and antiparasitic agent. Again, I'm not going to say what it is, but within a couple of weeks, was it miserable, terrible? Yes. Did it scare me to death? No, it's an illness. I had a flu before. Well, there we go.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, by any chance, accept payment plans for the gamma machine?
Payment plans for the gamma machine?
Yes, if you have a consult with us as a patient on the phone or otherwise, then we can rent them to you for $200 a month until you paid for it.
That's probably the best way. I like that. Yeah.
And that is all the questions.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been
Are we ending the stream now?
20 weeks since we had that many questions.
I like that. Audience participation. And I do want to say that, for just in general, for the folks out there, take care of yourself, take care of your health.
Oh, yeah.
Stay away from, if you have an option, stay away from the media, stay away from the poison, stay away from the fluoride in the water and the media and the news and the social media, as bad as it is. It's almost as bad as fluoride, probably worse. But take care of yourself. And the holistic approach is literally everything, mind, body, and spirit.
And remember, every thought is a prayer. So think straight, holistic.
And if you're not getting the answers that you need or you're not feeling great, get the answers, which is what I did with the hormones and everything else. And like I said, Dr. Shealy, you feel like 26, right?
I still do.
26. I feel like
I exercise 2 hours every morning.
Well, I don't know how in the 20s I feel, but I feel like I'm better than in my 20s, as a matter of fact. And I'm double that, so more than that. But again, if you're not feeling great, do something about it. And we look forward to hearing from you. We have the clinic is at 417-351-5221. Hormones, health, wellness, everything. And even certain notes and certain exemptions for qualified candidates under certain capacities. I'm not going to say anything more about that when appropriate. But take care of yourself. Take care of your life and enjoy. Take care.
And we do give exemptions.
We do.